Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is a topic of did Africans ever invent anything? And the simple answer to the question is yes. I do believe Africans invented stuff, okay? And now the reason why I believe that, despite obvious, biases such as the fact that, well, I'm black, you know, is simply down to the fact that when you look at the history of Africa, um, in recent history, in human civilization's terms, more like human history terms to be more exact, like the past few thousand years. The truth of the matter is, Africa historically actually did have civilizations. Okay, for that matter, okay? To put it bluntly, okay? Whether it could be Nubia, which has become a very highly contested civilization, that is known to be the rival of Egypt, or it could be all the other pyramidic civilizations. In other words, civilizations that used pyramids, because it wasn't just Egypt that used pyramids as well as the Nubians. It was also other ones like the Land of Punt and a few other ones that existed. The truth of the matter is, especially when you look at how life was back then and people didn't really travel anywhere, it's kind of clear as day to anyone who uses their brain that, yeah, those people were black. Okay. Now, the Egyptians, I don't really know if they were black or not. We don't know if they were or they were not. But the other civilizations that were around the area of Egypt definitely were black for certain. Okay. That surrounded them. Specifically, of course, Nubia is what we'll use as an example. Okay. And the truth of the matter is, obviously, if you have a civilization, the fact that you even have a civilization in the first place, which is a permanent settlement that obviously has agriculture, in other words, the ability to grow food, and so on and so forth. Of course, no surprise whatsoever, because that's what we consider a civilization in this world, for that matter. Okay, those basic things. The truth of the matter is, I'm certain at some point you will figure something out. At some point, it's just not a common sense. Whether it could be something like a more advanced method of how to build something, or maybe an idea like, you know, how to come up with this particular solution to this specific problem. Like, for example, maybe um, how to, of course, come up with better perfume, maybe a better writing system, a mathematical system, or even maybe a straight up invention, what we consider invention in this part of the world, like maybe a mechanical device or something like that, like a primitive one, of course, non Steam based one, because that wouldn't happen for thousands of years later after Nubia fell, and so on and so forth. Um, Stuff like that, you know, um, you know, is what could be considered invention. All those things, okay, for that matter, okay? Because if you have a civilization, like I was saying before, common sense would indicate that you're probably gonna figure some things out at some point, if anything. And that's the truth of the matter. Whether it could be all the things I mentioned or even something else. And this is the thing people need to understand about inventions. Inventions don't necessarily mean like you come up with a specific device or something that revolutionized the world. It could be different things that had a massive impact on the world, even if it's something small, like a comb, which could be something that obviously it had a massive impact because it helped keeps people hair clean, so obviously you can keep lice out, or something like even a better um, farming method or even a better building technique are things that could be considered inventions, or even just the traditional inventions we would consider. Like maybe it could be like a pulley system that makes it possible for people to lift heavy objects, like they claim Egypt might have used, or maybe a better type of ship or something, or even maybe even a new um type of metal or something like that. Those are things that can obviously be considered inventions, okay? Because an invention could just be anything that's just really a good idea in the first place. It doesn't have to be anything overly flashy, but it could also be those exact things I mentioned, to be quite blunt and honest with you. So the truth of the matter is, um, you know, if you have a civilization, you're gonna think of something at some point. There's just so many people, there's so much time. Humans always have the ability to learn something from the past and retain that information and obviously add something to it, which is something even Black Africans, according to the racist ideology we live in the world, can do. So even if you were to make that argument, oh, Black people are not as smart as white people, it still doesn't mean they couldn't have invented or thought of something great. Good ideas come up in everyone's head. And obviously, if you're using the knowledge of something that has already existed, you can just add something to it and and ta-da, that's an invention. So this whole idea that Black people, whether it's Nubia, Great Zimbabwe, the many West African civilizations that existed that were destroyed, um, you know, to help sell a certain myth, which I'm going to get to for my second point for this video. And of course, no surprise, the Zulus, those are all groups of people that had more than enough time to think of something and come up with something for that matter. Okay. So, this whole idea that you couldn't have thought of something, if you have a civilization that lasted anywhere from centuries to even 1,000+ years or something, is simply foolish and makes literally no sense. There's a lot of things that were clearly um, invented by Africans at some point, and you just don't hear about it. And the people who sometimes get the credit, of course, are not Black. So that's the truth of the matter. So that's the first point I want to get across. And the second point I want to also get across, aside from that point, of course, is this is where using critical thinking comes in the mix. Because I know the Western world is not really well known historically for critical thinking, specifically North America. Canada and United States specifically, but critical thinking is extremely important because the truth of the matter is, it already has been proven by historians, and they have literally documentations of it, of the idea that um, people who lived back then in the 15, 16, 17, 1800s deliberately used to destroy black things, or in other words, things created by black people, in order to cover up the idea that black people could actually invent and come up and create things for that matter. Okay. This is historical freaking facts, for crying out loud. Okay. We have the papers, we have the information where they said that they would literally destroy cities to help sell the idea that black people are stupid. There is documentations made by the British to say that they would destroy a city, which could have literally just been a city that just consisted of a few thousand, tens of thousands of people that they destroyed just to sell this idea that black people are stupid and couldn't have invented anything. That is stuff that's documented. So the idea that we didn't come up with something or invent anything is so stupid it's not even funny. Especially when you take into consideration, obviously, anyone who knows anything about research or something, the biggest thing you're not supposed to do is to have a bias. And most of the people who, for the past few centuries, of course, influenced by slavery, when it came to their beliefs about black people, hated black people. So if you have people who obviously hate you in the first place, how can you present any solid information or knowledge, for that matter, when it comes to, proving that this group of people were not able to do this thing, or let alone create a civilization for that matter? It obviously reeks of massive bias in the first place. So the whole idea that black people were never able to invent anything or come up with anything is so stupid it's not even funny. Especially when you take into consideration that a lot of things that we came up with, whether it could be, you know, um, even things as trivial as like food or music, specifically music, has been consistently promoted, and it has consistently been stolen by numerous groups of people, and modern American music is influenced by it. And specifically, most importantly of all, back to my main point, when it comes to most important things of all, like inventions and stuff that can make the world change, you know, the truth of the matter is, I'm certain they could have come up with something. Anyone can come up with a good idea. Anyone can think of something. This whole idea that, oh, just because you're black doesn't mean you can't come up with something is so stupid. And that's the truth of the matter, for that matter, in the first place, especially when this stuff is written by people who obviously have a bias in the first place. Common sense. So the truth of the matter is, when it comes to this whole idea that black people were never able to invent anything, it's simply foolish and silly and simply makes no sense. So in short, yes, we did invent something. So if you wanted to know if we did or not, hopefully I answered your question, and this is my video, and this is all I have to say, and simply put, I'm out. So bye.